In Lamara City, Ebony and Tay were inseparable. Everyone who saw them together couldn't help but smile. Their love felt effortless, full of laughter, little jokes and dreams whispered under the evening sky. They would stroll by the river, hands intertwined, sharing secrets and planning a future that seemed perfect. Ebony loved the way Tay looked at her, like she was the only person in the world. She imagined the life they would build together, full of warmth and happiness. One bright morning when she realized she was pregnant, her heart leapt with joy. She pictured Tay's smile, their little family, the laughter of a child filling their small flat. She told him softly, expecting him to hold her close and share the excitement, but she didn't know that a shadow was already creeping into their story. Life had a twist waiting for her, one she could never have imagined. She clutched her growing belly, dreaming of the love that would grow stronger, not knowing that the very man she trusted most might be the one to turn away when she needed him the most. Her heart was full of hope, but fate was about to test it in ways she had never faced before. If you like, I can continue with part 2, the sudden coldness keeping the same emotional viral tone. Do you want me to do that next? Weeks into her pregnancy, Ebony began noticing a change in Tay. At first it was small. He was quieter than usual, distracted during their conversations, sometimes staring out the window as if somewhere else. Then came the missed calls, the messages that went unanswered, and the evenings when he promised to come over but never showed. At first, Ebony tried to brush it off, thinking maybe he was stressed at work or tired. But the distance grew heavier with each passing day, like a shadow slowly settling between them. One evening, unable to bear it any longer, she confronted him. Her voice trembled, but there was steel in her words. Tay, why are you pushing me away? What's happening? He avoided her gaze, his fingers nervously fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I can't, Ebony, he muttered, almost too quietly to hear. I'm not ready. The words hit her like a storm she had not seen coming. Not ready. Not ready for their child. Not ready for the life they had dreamed of together? Her heart sank, a heavy twisting pain that left her breathless. Tears threatened to fall, but she held them back, refusing to let him see the depth of her hurt. She had imagined him smiling at the news, holding her hand through every doctor's visit, whispering promises of a future together. Now all those dreams felt like shards of glass cutting into her chest. Days passed and the coldness only grew. Tay's avoidance was like a wall she could not climb, a silence that spoke louder than any words. Friends noticed the change in her, their sympathetic glances making her cheeks burn with shame and confusion. She felt abandoned, carrying a life she had hoped would bind them closer, only to realize that sometimes love falters when it is needed most. Yet, despite the ache in her heart, a small flicker of determination remained. She had to protect the child growing inside her, even if it meant facing the world alone. I can now continue with part 3, the abandonment keeping the story D. One rainy evening, as the city streets of Zawina district glistened under the dim glow of streetlights, Tay quietly packed his bag. He didn't speak, didn't leave a note, didn't look back. The sound of the rain hitting the tin roof mixed with the soft thud of his footsteps as he walked out the door, leaving Ebony alone in their small rented flat. She heard the door click behind him and then silence. The kind of silence that presses down on your chest and steals your breath. She clutched her belly instinctively, feeling the tiny, gentle movements of the life inside her. A life that now seemed more precious than ever because it was hers to protect. Outside, neighbors whispered, their voices carrying through the thin walls. Some shook their heads in pity, others murmured words of judgment. How could he leave her like this? Ebony heard snippets as she pulled the blanket tighter around her shoulders, her body trembling from both the chill of the room and the chill in her heart. Her eyes stung, but she refused to cry out loud. Tears fell silently, tracing quiet rivers down her cheeks. She had loved him with everything she had imagined a future full of laughter and warmth, and now it was gone, leaving a hollow ache that seemed too heavy to bear. Yet, even in the pain she felt a small, unshakable spark. The baby inside her kicked, and she pressed her hand to her belly, whispering softly, I'll protect you, little one. No matter what, I'll keep you safe. She thought of her mother's words. The world may leave you, but God never will. She wiped her tears and drew a deep, steadying breath. The room felt emptier than ever, but inside her determination began to bloom. She might be alone, but she was not defeated. The storm outside mirrored the storm in her heart, but she knew one thing. This child would have a mother who would fight, who would love fiercely, and who would rise even when the world tried to break her. I can continue with part 4, The Weight of Low. Days slipped by like quiet shadows, each one heavier than the last. Ebony woke to empty mornings, the silence of the small flat pressing down on her chest. She went to doctor's appointments alone, her hand resting protectively over her growing belly, listening to the steady heartbeat of the tiny life inside her. Nights were worse. Cravings woke her in the dark, and she wandered the kitchen for snacks she barely had the energy to prepare. Sleep was shallow and fleeting, filled with dreams of what could have been, of laughter and love now gone. Each day the absence of Tay, the man she had trusted with her heart, felt like a hollow weight she could not shake. Through it all, her mother, never left her side. She cooked meals, ran errands, and sometimes just sat quietly beside her, holding her hand as if passing strength through touch alone. "Your strength will protect both of you, child," said one evening, brushing a tear from Ebony's cheek. "The world may leave you, but God never will." Those words settled deep in Ebony's heart. She realized that while Tay had walked away, she was not truly alone. The baby inside her, tiny yet powerful, gave her courage she didn't know she had. She began to speak to the unborn child, whispering promises she would keep. "I will never let anyone hurt you. I will protect you with all that I am." Even in the loneliness, Ebony found small moments of light. She painted the nursery herself, choosing soft pastel colors that made the room feel warm and safe. She sewed tiny clothes, laughing softly at the tiny socks and hats, imagining the day she would see her baby wearing them. Each small task reminded her that she was capable, that her love alone could nurture a life, even without the man who had promised to be there. And with every day that passed, the hollow ache in her chest began to transform into determination, into courage, and into a fierce, unbreakable love that no one could take away. I can continue with part 5. Soon word of Tay's departure spread across Lamra City like wildfire. People whispered in markets, salons, and church gatherings. "Did you hear? He left her while she's pregnant," some said, eyes wide with pity. Others shook their heads in disbelief. "Such a heartless man," a few muttered, while some cruel tongues even mocked Ebony, saying she must have done something wrong to make him leave. Everywhere she went, she could feel the weight of their stares, the silent sympathy, the hidden gossip, the kind smiles that carried pity instead of warmth. At first, the whispers hurt deeply. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to tell everyone that she had loved him with all her heart, that she didn't deserve the pain he caused. But instead, Ebony chose silence. She decided that her energy was better spent on something pure, her child. She poured her love and pain into preparing for the baby's arrival. She began sewing tiny clothes, her hands trembling at first but growing steadier with each stitch. She made small shirts and soft blankets, humming to herself as the needle moved. Sometimes she would pause, place her hand on her belly and whisper, "You and I are going to be okay." She painted the nursery herself, choosing gentle pastel colors that reminded her of peace and new beginnings. The walls slowly transformed from dull gray to soft hues of yellow and mint, glowing in the afternoon light. Each stroke of paint felt like healing, like a promise that life would bloom again. Some days she would stand by the window, watching mothers walk by with their children, and feel a pang of both sadness and hope. The rumors still floated around, but Ebony learned to rise above them. Her love for her unborn child became louder than the noise of the world. People could talk, they always would, but she had something far more powerful than their words. A purpose. And as she hummed lullabies to her growing baby, the whispers faded into the background, replaced by the quiet S. One quiet afternoon, when the sun hung low over the rooftops of Zawina district, Ebony heard a soft knock on her door. It was Oba, her neighbor from across the hallway. He stood there with a small basket of groceries in his hands, smiling gently. "I thought you might need these," he said shyly. Inside were fresh vegetables, fruits, and a loaf of warm bread. At first, Ebony didn't know what to say. She had grown used to doing everything alone and didn't want anyone's pity. But there was something kind and genuine in Oba's eyes that made her pause. She thanked him quietly, not realizing that this small act of kindness would soon become her lifeline. Over the next few weeks, Oba's presence became a steady comfort. He helped her carry things from the market, drove her to clinic appointments when she felt too tired to walk, and sometimes just sat outside with her talking about ordinary things, music, weather, life. Ebony learned that Oba was also a single parent. His wife had passed away when their daughter was still a baby. "I know what it's like," he said one evening, his voice soft. "It's hard at first, but it gets easier when you realize you're not alone." Those words touched something deep inside her. For the first time in months, Ebony felt seen. Not as the woman who had been abandoned, but as someone strong and capable. She began to smile more, laugh softly, and find peace in the simple moments they shared. When her cravings hit at midnight, Oba would knock on her door with roasted plantains or mango slices, joking that he was on baby duty too. Slowly, Ebony started believing in kindness again. She realized that love didn't always have to come wrapped in grand promises or fancy words. Sometimes it came quietly, through helping hands, shared stories, and gentle understanding. And though her heart still carried scars, it also began to heal. She learned that even when life breaks you, unexpected people can help you rebuild. Piece by piece, smile by smile. The morning came quietly, with a soft drizzle outside and the sky painted in shades of gray and gold. Ebony woke up with a sharp pain in her belly, the kind she had been told to expect but could never truly prepare for. Her heart raced. "It's time," she whispered, her voice trembling with both fear and excitement. Oba rushed her to a Hina hospital, and her mother met them there, holding her hand as nurses guided her into the serene, softly lit maternity ward. The smell of antiseptic mixed with the faint scent of lavender, and somewhere in the background, a lullaby played gently. Hours passed in waves of pain and courage. Sweat covered Ebony's forehead, and her grip on her mother's hand grew tighter with each contraction. She wanted to scream, to give up, but then she thought of the tiny heartbeat she had heard months ago, the heartbeat that had kept her going through every tear, every lonely night. That thought gave her strength. "Breathe, my child, breathe," her mother whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. The doctor's calm voice guided her through each push, each moment of agony and hope tangled together. And then it happened. A cry sharp and pure filled the room. Ebony froze, her breath catching in her chest. That cry, her baby's first sound, broke something inside her and healed it all at once. The nurses smiled through tears, the doctor whispered congratulations, and her mother sobbed openly, praising God under her breath. Ebony's eyes filled as she reached out trembling hands to hold her son. He was tiny, wrapped in a soft blue blanket, his little fingers curling around hers as if promising, "I'm here now, Mama." In that moment, all the pain, betrayal, and loneliness melted away. What was left was something fierce and beautiful, a love so powerful it felt like light. As she looked at his face, Ebony knew her life would never be the same again. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning again. Not as the woman who was left behind. When news of the baby finally reached Tay, it hit him harder than he expected. He had not seen or spoken to Ebony in months. Every night, guilt had followed him like a shadow, but he pushed it away, convincing himself it was too late, that she didn't need him anymore. But when a friend showed him a photo of Ebony at a Hina hospital, cradling a newborn wrapped in blue, something inside him broke. He stared at the tiny face in the picture, his son, and his chest tightened with a pain he couldn't name. He realized he had missed it all. The waiting, the struggle, the miracle. Driven by a mix of regret and longing, Tay went to the hospital the next morning. His heart pounded as he walked through the white corridors, his palms sweaty, his steps unsure. He rehearsed what he would say. Maybe she would cry and forgive him, maybe they could start again. But when he reached the room and saw her, the words vanished. Ebony was sitting by the window, sunlight bathing her face in a soft golden glow. Her baby slept peacefully in her arms, his small hand resting on her chest. She looked different, calm, strong, and complete. When she saw Tay standing in the doorway, her expression didn't change much. No anger, no surprise, just quiet strength. "You came," she said softly, almost as if she had already expected this moment. Tay nodded, his voice breaking. I heard about the baby. I just wanted to see him." He took a hesitant step closer, his eyes glistening as they fell on the tiny boy. The child stirred slightly, a small sound escaping his lips, the same kind of cry that had once filled this room and changed everything. Tay's heart clenched. Regret washed over him in waves. This was his son, his flesh, his blood, and he had missed it all because of fear. Ebony looked at her baby, then back at him, her voice calm but firm. "You left us when we needed you most, Tay. But we're not the same anymore." Her words hung in the air, soft yet powerful. For the first time Tay slowly reached out his hands, his fingers trembling as he looked at the tiny boy sleeping peacefully in Ebony's arms. For a moment he saw everything he had thrown away. The love, the home, the dreams they had once shared. "Can I hold him?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Ebony didn't answer right away. She looked at him, really looked. At the man who had once promised her forever and then vanished when forever began to take shape. Her eyes were calm, but behind them was the pain of every lonely night, every tear she had shed, every appointment she had faced alone. "You left us," she said finally, her voice steady but filled with emotion. The words hit Tay harder than any shout ever could. He lowered his hand slowly, unable to meet her gaze. "I know," he murmured, guilt heavy in his tone. "I made a mistake, Ebony. I was scared. I thought I wasn't ready." Ebony looked down at her baby, gently tracing his tiny fingers. "You thought you weren't ready," she said quietly. "But I didn't have that choice. I had to be ready the moment you walked away." Her words hung in the air, sharp but honest. Tay swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her truth settle in his chest. The baby stirred, letting out a small, soft cry. That sound, the same first cry that had filled the hospital room days before, reminded Ebony of everything she had endured to bring him into the world. That cry was her victory, her turning point. It was proof that even after being abandoned, she had created life, love, and strength from her pain. Ebony adjusted the baby gently, her eyes softening but her tone still firm. "He doesn't need empty promises, Tay. He needs peace. And I'll make sure he has it." Tay nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. He finally understood that this was no longer his story to control. The life she carried, the strength she had built, it was hers to protect, not his to claim. And in that quiet moment he realized what true loss really felt like. Wow. Word spread quickly through Zawina district that Tay had returned. By the next day, neighbors were already whispering, curious to see how Ebony would react. Some stood by their windows pretending to sweep or hang clothes, while others gathered in small groups, murmuring quietly. "After all she went through, she should send him away," one woman said. "He left her when she was carrying his child. He doesn't deserve another chance," another added. But others shook their heads and sighed, saying, "Maybe he's changed. Maybe he came to make things right." When Tay arrived at Ebony's home, carrying a small gift for the baby, the entire neighborhood seemed to hold its breath. Her mother watched silently from the doorway, her eyes guarded but curious. Ebony opened the door slowly, her baby in her arms. Tay greeted her softly, unsure of his place, his voice trembling with regret. The air felt thick with tension, but Ebony stood tall, her face calm and composed. She didn't shout, didn't cry, didn't collapse into his arms as some expected. Instead, she looked him straight in the eye, the same man who once made her heart race, and said quietly, "You can come in." Neighbors peeked from corners, whispering about how calm she was. Some thought she must have forgiven him completely. Others said she was too proud to show her pain. But inside that small room, the truth was different. Ebony wasn't cold, she was strong. Her baby's tiny hand gripped her finger tightly, and she felt a rush of peace. That small touch reminded her why she had survived the storm. Not to hold on to bitterness, but to protect the life she had built from ashes. As she watched Tay sit awkwardly across from her, holding the baby with tears in his eyes, she realized something powerful. Forgiveness didn't mean weakness, and strength didn't mean hate. Her calmness wasn't surrender. It was victory. Those watching from the outside saw only a quiet woman, but if they looked closer, they would have Ebony sat quietly that evening, rocking her baby to sleep. The soft hum of her lullaby filled the small room while Tay sat across from her, eyes lowered, unsure of what to say. The silence between them was heavy, filled with memories, of laughter that once lived here, of promises broken, of a love that had changed shape forever. Ebony watched her baby's face, so peaceful, and knew it was time to decide what kind of future she wanted for him. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but steady. "Tay," she said, "if you truly want to be in our son's life, it won't be with words. It will be with actions." Tay looked up, his eyes wet. "I don't want apologies," she continued softly. "I want responsibility. I want respect. I want honesty. You left when things got hard, but this time if you stay, it will be because you've grown, not because you feel guilty." Tay's throat tightened as he listened. The man who had once run from fear now sat before the woman he had hurt most, realizing how much strength it took for her to even speak to him with such grace. He nodded slowly, shame washing over him. "I understand," he whispered. "I can't undo what I did, but I'll try to make it right. I just want to be there, for him and for you if you'll let me." Ebony studied his face for a long moment. She could see sincerity in his eyes, but she also knew trust wasn't something that could be handed back easily. "Then prove it," she said finally. "Not to me, but to him." She looked down at their baby, who stirred softly in her arms. "He deserves a father who shows up, not one who makes promises he can't keep." Tay nodded again, his voice breaking. "I'll be that father," he said. For the first time, Ebony believed he might mean it. Not because of the tears in his eyes, but because life had humbled him. He finally understood that love wasn't about control. It was about showing up, staying true, and never running away again. Would you like me to continue with part 12, The Fae? Weeks turned into months, and life began to take a new shape for Ebony. The early chaos of motherhood slowly turned into a rhythm. Sleepless nights, morning giggles, and the quiet joy of watching her son grow. Every day brought a new challenge, but also a new reason to smile. She learned how to juggle work and motherhood, often rushing from her small tailoring shop to the daycare, her eyes tired but her heart full. Her hands stitched beautiful dresses by day, and at night, those same hands rocked her baby to sleep. It wasn't easy, but every little milestone made the struggle worth it. Tay began visiting regularly, always careful not to cross boundaries. He helped with groceries, paid for baby supplies, and took quiet joy in feeding his son or making him laugh. Ebony noticed the change in him. He no longer spoke of promises, he showed them through small actions. He arrived early, left late, and never missed a clinic visit or birthday. Though Ebony kept her guard up, she couldn't deny that his effort helped heal a part of her heart that had once been broken. The baby's first laugh came one sunny afternoon. Ebony was feeding him mashed bananas when he suddenly burst into giggles, his little eyes shining like morning dew. She laughed too, tears of joy spilling down her cheeks. That sound, innocent and pure, filled the house like music. Later came his first steps, wobbly but determined, and his first word, "Mama," which made Ebony cry all over again. Those tiny moments stitched her heart back together, piece by piece. Without realizing it, her story began spreading online. A friend posted her photo with her baby and wrote, "Abandoned, yet rising stronger than ever." People across Lamara City shared it, admiring her strength and grace. Strangers sent her messages of love and encouragement. Ebony didn't see herself as a hero, just a mother doing her best, but to others, she was proof that heartbreak doesn't end you. It reshapes you. And every milestone her son Ebony's quiet strength soon became the talk of Lamara City. People who once whispered about her now spoke her name with admiration. She didn't just survive, she transformed her pain into power. One afternoon, while sitting under the mango tree near her tailoring shop, she saw a young pregnant girl crying on the roadside. That moment stirred something deep inside her. Ebony remembered her own nights of fear, loneliness, and doubt. She walked over, comforted the girl, and invited her to her home for a warm meal. That small act of kindness became the seed of something much bigger. Within weeks, Ebony started a small support circle in her neighborhood for expectant mothers facing abandonment. They met every weekend, sharing stories, tears, and laughter. She called it Mothers of Light. First, there were only 3 women. But soon word spread, more came, bringing friends, sisters, and neighbors. They shared advice about prenatal care, emotional healing, and ways to earn income while raising children alone. Ebony taught them sewing, showing how even with little, they could create something beautiful. Each dress they made carried not just fabric and thread, but courage and hope. Her story caught the attention of local media. A photo of her sitting with the women, surrounded by baby clothes and laughter, began to circulate online. The caption read, "She was left alone. Now she helps others stand tall." People from nearby cities started visiting her group, donating supplies and volunteering their time. Even doctors offered free checkups for the mothers. Through it all, Ebony stayed humble. When people called her a hero, she would smile softly and say, "I'm just a mother who refused to give up." Her son, now a curious toddler, often played beside her during meetings, tugging at her wrapper or giggling as the women clapped and sang. Ebony had once cried herself to sleep, believing her story had ended in heartbreak. But now, as she stood before a room full of women, Tay's journey toward redemption was not easy. The day he walked away from Ebony had haunted him for months. Guilt followed him everywhere. In his work, in his dreams, in every baby's cry he heard on the street. When he finally saw his son for the first time, something inside him broke and rebuilt at the same time. From that moment, he promised himself he would do everything to make things right. Not with grand gestures, but with quiet, consistent effort. He started by showing up every single day. He helped with school fees, carried diapers, and took turns rocking the baby when Ebony needed rest. He didn't expect praise or forgiveness. He only wanted to prove that he had changed. Sometimes, Ebony still looked at him with guarded eyes, unsure if she could trust him again. And he understood. He had hurt her deeply. So he waited, letting his actions speak louder than his words. Tay also began volunteering with Ebony's Mothers of Light group. At first, the women were cold toward him, whispering behind his back, calling him the man who left. But he didn't argue. He helped carry chairs, set up tables, and fetch water. Over time, they saw his sincerity. One day, during a meeting, a young mother thanked him for repairing her sewing machine. That small moment of acknowledgement felt like forgiveness, not just from the group but from life itself. Through Ebony's eyes, Tay began to understand what real strength looked like. It wasn't about power or pride. It was about responsibility, humility, and quiet love. He often told people, "Ebony raised a king, and taught me to be a better man." Their relationship didn't go back to how it used to be. It became something new, built on respect, not control. Tay no longer tried to be the center of the story. He accepted that the real hero was Ebony, the woman who carried his child when the world turned its back, who rose from pain and built light for others. In her, he saw the meaning of redemption, not a return to W. Ebony's story spread far beyond Lamara City. It crossed borders and hearts across Africa. People shared her photos online with captions that read, "He abandoned me during pregnancy, but my baby's first cry changed his fate." Her name became a symbol of courage and unbreakable spirit. Everyone who heard her story felt something deep inside. A reminder that no matter how cruel life becomes, strength can grow from pain. Videos of her support group, Mothers of Light, went viral. Women from different cities reached out, saying her journey gave them the courage to stand tall again. Some called her Mama Strength. Others called her the woman who turned heartbreak into hope. Ebony never chased fame. She only wanted to help others find their voice. But life had other plans. Her story became a light for those walking through darkness. One day, a journalist asked her, "How did you find the courage to forgive?" Ebony smiled softly and said, "Forgiveness isn't for them. It's for me. I couldn't raise my son in bitterness. I chose peace." That line alone was shared thousands of times online. Tay stood by quietly, proud and humbled, knowing her strength had saved them both. And as Ebony watched her son play under the same mango tree where her journey began, she whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. She had lost everything once, but gained something far greater: purpose, peace, and a story that would live forever. Would you like me to create a hyper-realistic emotional image prompt for this final part? The viral legend of Ebony?